Hello, everybody, and welcome to the War Room. This is for this weekend's exhibition boxing match between two boxing greats, two of the greatest boxers that have ever lived, Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson. So, where do I start? Exhibition match. Let's start with that. So this is, 8 2-minute rounds. Nobody will be scoring it, although there will be unofficial scorecards being taken. Obviously, everybody watching it will be scoring it, and everybody will have an opinion, no matter whether official scorecards will be taken or not. Still not exactly sure what's going on with the knockouts. Apparently knockouts are allowed, apparently knockouts aren't allowed. Mike Tyson said if he sees the opportunity, he's going to go for it, etc., etc. Let me just give you a blanket statement here which kind of covers this, in my opinion. Anyone that's been doing combat sports for long enough will tell you there's no such thing as an exhibition match. There's no such thing. I've seen so many exhibition matches start. I'm not going to keep doing that because I'll end up looking like Dr. Evil talking about lasers. I've seen so many exhibition matches started as exhibition matches and ends up with teeth coming out and broken noses and stuff. This will be an exhibition match as long as you know the first knockout punch is not thrown. Which, well, you tell me how it's going in the first 30 seconds of the fight. Both of these guys, obviously, pretty much at the same stage of their career. Obviously, they've retired. They're inactive. One for a lot longer than the other. Roy Jones was fighting up until 2018, I believe it was. Mike Tyson, on the other hand, has not been in there since, when was it? 2005. So it's been 15 years for Mike Tyson. It's been a little while. There's only 3 years in difference in age. Mike Tyson, 3 years older. But a lot of differences as far as their careers go, their abilities, their boxing styles. Okay, so let me get into this. So first of all, the weight difference between the two. So Roy Jones thinks he's going to be coming in around about 200 pounds, which is around about the same weight that he faced John Ruiz. Now, for any boxing fans, any combat sports fans out there, if you've not watched it, go and watch the breakdown. The countdown to the Ruiz Roy Jones fight, and then go and watch the fight straight after. It's a really interesting process of Jones moving up a weight class and challenging a heavyweight champion, and he employs this guy Mackie Shilstone and gets him in incredible shape. Anyway, it's a fascinating little kind of sort of 3-hour little study if you want to get into it. But Roy Jones back in those days, around 200 pounds, was lethal. He was deadly. He was slick, he was fast, he would move in and out of range very quickly, he managed space with his jab very well. He smothered people on the inside by letting them pressure into him and just kind of boxing them around the ears. And, he's a very, very tricky individual. The problem with Roy Jones' style is that it relies a lot on youth and speed and timing and reactions, which are all things that obviously they fade pretty quickly, when you hit a certain point in your career. And what you tend to find is that fighters that they build their career on being slicker than their opponent and being faster, when they hit that cliff, they kind of fall off. Now, Roy Jones never necessarily fell off. Obviously, his competition declined pretty quickly. But, if you look at the last few years of his competition, the only real loss, the only loss, in how long has it been? Well, I mean, in the last sort of 5 years, the only loss that he's had is Enzo Maccarinelli, who's an excellent fighter, a real long-range, difficult individual to deal with. He's fought a lot of good competition. He's fought a lot of rounds. He's got a lot of experience. He also fought into his recent years, so he knows much more what his body's like at this age as a fighter. He's only been out there for a couple of years. He's probably never been inactive. Mike Tyson's, he will have supposedly lost 70 pounds from his maximum weight, which would have made him 310 pounds. He estimates to be around 240, which will still be a career high, I believe, for Mike Tyson. It will still be very heavy for him. His last weigh-in against Kevin McBride He was 233. So, he's always been around the 230, 240 mark. Well, 230 mark, really. This is going to be slightly heavier for him. But he looks great. And, on the flip side, what I was saying about Roy Jones, his style being speed, reactions, head movement, a lot of timing-based, reaction-based skills, they fade with age. On the flip side, you've got Mike Tyson, who is, good fundamentals, good defense, good head movement, big puncher. They're all things that transfer over the years with age. Now, Mike Tyson in these last few fights, obviously, was just not, he wasn't a good version of himself. I watched the Kevin McBride fight earlier today, and he retired at 6 rounds. He had good moments in the fight. He had typical Mike Tyson moments in the fight, but he just kind of looked old and slow and frustrated at times. And you could see that frustration coming out. There was some headbutts going in and some shoulder wrenching, and he tried to hyperextend his elbow a couple of times. But in the early rounds, his head movement was good. He was slipping side to side. So Tyson's got. Okay, let me just rewind a bit and talk stylistically about how they're different. So, for a start, Mike Tyson. So he's got a slightly shorter stance. Now, as far as height and reach, there's only 1 inch height difference. Roy Jones is 5'11" compared to Mike Tyson's 5'10". Roy Jones will have a 3-inch reach advantage, which will be, it will be a nice advantage for Roy Jones to have because of his style, dependent on how the fight goes. Let me just put an asterisk next to that. Okay, so Mike Tyson's got a short, compact stance. He's got a nice, tight, high guard. He's very disciplined in the way that he moves, in the way that he goes about his work. There are a couple of movements that he uses. He's got a gazelle punch where he leaps with his lead left hook. A couple of things do look a little reckless, but the majority of his game is very compact. It's very tight up the center, nice tight hooks, good head movement, nice head movement slipping side to side as well. Roy Jones, on the flip side, has got a much longer stance. He likes to hang his lead hand low. He likes to snap it out there. He's got a very, very quick jab. I mean, still at his age, he's got a fairly quick jab from what I saw against Sigmund. Not as quick as it used to be, obviously, but that will be his main weapon in managing the distance between the two, and that's going to be a key for him because his stance is so side on. There are 2 ways that Roy Jones fights. One is in being very side on, using his range, using his speed, to his advantage. The other one is being closed up against the ropes and working a very tight guard. And it's almost like a tie clinch. He doesn't keep his hands at the side of his head. He keeps them at the side of his opponents, and he kind of boxes their ears, and then they'll come in with body shots to follow. He's very good on the inside, very tricky up the center line as well. But obviously that's not going to be a preferred range against Mike Tyson. Tyson will. I do expect at some point Roy Jones to be backed up against the fence, backed up against the ropes, kind of playing, a bit of rope-a-dope, and allowing Mike Tyson to bully him a little bit on the ropes. But Tyson's got good body work, and that's the difference between these guys in their 50s and these guys in their 20s and 30s. Is they're probably not doing the hours and hours of conditioning, the sit-ups, the crunches, the conditioning of the midsection that you need to defend. So I do think body shots will be a big part of this one. I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone go down from a body shot, especially because they might be pulling a little bit of their power out of their headshots. Or certainly Mike Tyson will be, because I do feel like he's got the power to still get some finishes. Okay, what haven't I covered? Let me think. Okay, so as I was saying about Roy Jones, he's got a long-range stance. He likes to stand very long, very side-on, hangs that lead hand low and snaps it out. He's got a lunging right hand, and he tends to lunge in, then follow it with all of his weight. If you watch when he throws his right hand, his rear foot drags with it as well, which, what he tends to do is he tends to throw it, and if it lands, and he crashes into range, rolls out, picks an angle. If they lower their level and it goes over the top, then he just drops his weight onto them. Given the fact that there's a weight disadvantage here for him, he can't muscle Tyson like other fighters may have done. that's something that stood out when I was watching Tyson's last fight against Kevin McBride. So that was June 11th, 2005. As I said, it went 6 rounds. Kevin McBride was a decent bit bigger. He was I don't know, maybe 4 inches taller. I think he had like a 30 or 40 pound advantage in weight as well. And you could see it, it did start to wear on Tyson. Every opportunity that McBride had, he was tying him up. He was, overhooking, forcing Tyson to carry his weight as much as possible, which, over the rounds at the state that Tyson was in at the time, was clearly very taxing on him. So Roy Jones is going to try and manage range with his lead hand. It's going to be difficult, though, given the fact that Tyson's got really nice side-to-side head movement. It's going to be Tyson trying to eat the canvas away from Roy Jones and try and back him up to the ropes, where he can start working the body and start working those shots up the center channel. They both have, similar punches that they use, but the range that they're applied is different. Like I was saying with Roy Jones, like I was saying with Tyson, he's got the gazelle punch, that short left hook that he tends to hop in with. The difference with that and the long range left hook that Roy Jones has got are different. So again, it's favourable for Tyson to be in close. Same thing goes with the right hand. Roy Jones stands long and he throws it from a distance, throws with all of his body weight behind it, and follows it into range, either over his opponent or into a clinch, or picks an angle and he's off to one side. For Tyson, he tends to hook really tight over that lead shoulder. And that's not necessarily a useful punch against someone that mirrors Tyson's style. If you've got two guys that stand quite square, that short right hand doesn't work too well. But someone like Roy Jones, who stands with their lead hand low and who has to use their timing of their jab to keep you at a distance, there might be opportunities for Tyson to crack him with that short right hand, especially if he's starting to crowd him with his footwork. There is going to be a real battle of footwork in this one. Tyson doesn't really want to be on the end of Roy Jones, just getting frustrated with those stinging, cuffing, frustrating shots that, they just keep you on the outside. It's going to be that side-to-side head movement, nice footwork from Tyson that's going to try and get him back up against the ropes. As I said, body shots will be worked by both guys. Tyson's going to be far more impactful, though, when he's in close again. And any body shots that he's landing that will buckle the frame will bring that center channel uppercut. The nice Mike Tyson left hook uppercut up the center channel. I'm excited to see him in close because I think there's going to be quite a bit of hustle from Tyson. I think that's where he can do the most damage. Okay. So Roy Jones, obviously outstanding career. I don't really need to go over that anymore. Up to the second Tarver fight, which I thought was interesting, he only had one loss on his record, and that was a disqualification. So he was 49-1 going into that. Even though he's got losses on his record, he's got so many standout moments. It kind of doesn't even really matter. Tyson, okay, this is something that's worth mentioning as well. Obviously, in Tyson's last fight, we saw frustration of him. There were intentional headbutts. There were, the shoulder wrenching. Well, obviously, know about the biting incident. Tyson's, he's notoriously a nasty individual. He's got a real mean streak to him. If you read any of his books, Iron Ambition's another one that's worth a good read as well. Mike Tyson right now is a different individual, or at least he seems like that to all of the podcasts and the interviews that I've heard. And I think that it's a different kind of circumstance. Given the fact that this, what do you hear corners say in fighters to fighters between rounds? Stop looking for the knockout. If you force the knockout, it won't come. If this is an exhibition match, there might be an accidental knockout. There might be just a nice flurry of combination, chins on the end of a left hook, and down goes one of the fighters, most likely Roy Jones. I think Tyson's going to look really good in this. I think he's going to look really sharp. I think, what we have to bear in mind is, yes, this is an exhibition, if you like. But the reason that Tyson's getting back into this is not because he likes to stand in a ring and, with cameras filming him. It's because he likes competition. He likes to compete. He likes the risk of losing. He likes the rewards of winning. He likes the hard work. He likes, to have something to train for. And you don't train for an exhibition like you train for a fight. And the way that Tyson's been training it looks to me like he's ready for another crack at the title. Really interesting one. What else have I got to say? So let's just tie it up with some numbers. So 50-6 is Tyson's record. Like I said, he's not fought in 15 years. Roy Jones is 66-9. Their knockouts, Mike Tyson's landed 44 knockouts of his 50 wins. Roy Jones 47 of his 66. So that's the 62% knockout ratio for Roy Jones and a 75% knockout ratio for Mike Tyson. The other thing that I find interesting as well is the fact that Mike Tyson, over his 56 fights, has boxed 215 rounds, whereas Roy Jones, although he's had a few more fights, he's boxed 495 rounds. So if this goes to 5 rounds, Roy Jones has done 500 rounds of boxing under somewhat professional circumstances. So very impressive. It'll be interesting to see what weights they come in at. You know, if Roy Jones comes in nice and light and looking sharp, he's going to try and keep a pace on Mike Tyson. Again, that's something that I feel like is finite due to age, though, and I feel like Mike Tyson's nice fundamentals, working his way inside and landing some nice combinations. I think this is going to be a real fun one, and a nice celebration of boxing between two greats that have got nothing more to prove. So let's hope for a friendly and action-packed exhibition. Enjoy the fights. See you next time.